Rahim, distinguished speakers, Chairman Board of Governors, Institute of Strategic Studies Islamabad, Director General Institute of Strategic Studies Islamabad, fellow colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. I am Dr. Saif Malik, Director India Studies Center at Institute of Strategic Studies Islamabad. I warmly welcome you all to this August forum. Today's panel discussion titled Pakistan-Bangladesh Relations in the context of peace and stability in South Asia is highly significant in view of the prevailing geopolitical environment of South Asia. Pakistan and Bangladesh, being two very prominent countries of South Asia, are endowed with immense potential for cooperation and enjoy a pivotal geopolitical, geo-economic, as well as geostrategic position in South Asia. Both countries are also connected by a shared history and a common faith. Globally, the role of both countries is quite significant in terms of peacekeeping operation under the United Nations. On bilateral level, the two countries have also been providing military training to the armed forces officers from either side. Nevertheless, the potential of the two countries for playing more meaningful role in the South Asian politics has not been realized as yet to deal meaningfully with the myriad challenges to peace and stability of South Asia. The main threat to peace and security of South Asia rotate around the hegemonic designs of India towards all its neighbors, including Pakistan and Bangladesh, who share common borders with her. Be it the question of border or water sharing, India has disputed almost all of the nations of South Asia. India is currently involved in tense relations, not just with its traditional adversary Pakistan, but also China, Nepal, Bangladesh, and even Sri Lanka. While the Citizenship Amendment Act, which has been introduced to target Muslims within India, the act is also being used to target Muslims in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and migrants from Bangladesh. Hence, the growing Hindu nationalist dynamics suggest a strategic realignment among the regional states in South Asia to explain and analyze the multidimensional aspects of Pakistan-Bangladesh relations from the prism of peace and stability in South Asia. We are lucky to joined by Ambassador Azaz Ahmed Chaudhry, DG ISSI, Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, Chairman Board of Governors ISSI, Ambassador M. Sirajul Islam, Bangladesh former Ambassador to Japan, Mr. Muhammad Mohsin Rashid, a senior lawyer, Supreme Court of Bangladesh, Ambassador Alamgir Babar, Pakistan's former High Commissioner to Dhaka, and Professor Dr. Munis Ahmed, former Dean, University of Karachi. Sir, we are extremely honored to have you all here. With the help of these key experts, we aim to bring together collective knowledge and experiences and gain a comprehensive understanding of the subject matter. With this premise, prior to request Ambassador Azaz Ahmed Chaudhry for the welcome remarks, let me briefly introduce him. Ambassador Chaudhry has served as member of the Foreign Service of Pakistan for 37 years and Foreign Secretary of Pakistan over 3 years. His last diplomatic assignment was as Ambassador of Pakistan to United States of America. Ambassador Chaudhry holds a Master's in International Relations. He also authored a book, Pakistan, Mirror to Dutch Eyes. Sir, floor is with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Saif. Like you, I would also like to warmly welcome the honored speakers today, Ambassador Sirajul Islam, Mr. Mohsin Rashid, Ambassador Alamgir Babar, and Dr. Munis Ahmed. Bangladesh is an important member of South Asia, as you have rightly, Saif, remarked. We have bonds of history, faith, culture with them. So I want to congratulate the India Study Center to organize this program on this very important relationship. I have personally been always impressed with the Bangla intellect, and I've always said that. I think much of the intellectual stimulus in the history of South Asia has emanated from Bengal. And therefore, I'm very pleased that we are talking about this relationship. Let me just set the context, the evolving situation of South Asia, which in turn is affected by the global geopolitics. We all know that world is moving towards multipolarity, and we also know that United States, China competition is intensifying, unilateralism is rising, and multilateralism is retreating. We also see xenophobia rising, anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant sentiment also rising now in US as well. So quite a disorderly world is emerging. In South Asia, our region is now at the crossroad of all these phenomena, particularly the US-China competition. In this regard, India has chosen its sides already and has tilted towards the United States. This partnership between the US and India seems to have, in my view, emboldened the present leadership in India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his twin ambitions. The first ambition that he has is to create a Hindu Rashtra, or a Hindu state, which by very grain of it is an exclusionary ideology, which is anti-minorities and anti-Muslim in particular. The other objective that the Modi government has set out for itself seems to be to assert India's hegemony in the region. Hence, the emerging irritants and even problems and conflicts with other neighbors of India, including China, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and even on issues with Bangladesh. We believe that relatively smaller states of South Asia need to coordinate and consult and exchange views on where the region is headed with Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the biggest state in South Asia. And the session today is essentially an attempt to understand each other's perspectives on all these trends. On Bangladesh-Pakistan ties, it is my personal view that we need to break ice and move into a cooperative mode. Bangladesh has made impressive strides lately in economic growth. Many success stories one hears about them, like export-led industry, microfinance, and so on. So I guess there is space for both countries to learn from each other's experiences. So I'm keenly looking forward to hearing the two honored speakers from Bangladesh and also two speakers from Pakistan. Back to you, Najam. Seth.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, may I mention, especially for viewers, that we will hold a brief question and answer session as well to benefit the presence of worthy speakers. Please text your question in the message box and mention the panelists for response. Now I invite our first speaker, Ambassador M. Sirajul Islam, to enlighten us on security and cooperation in South Asia, Bangladeshi perspective. Ambassador Islam is a seasoned diplomat. He served in Bangladesh missions in Canberra, New Delhi, Washington, and Beijing. His two ambassadorial assignments were to Egypt and Japan, respectively. At the headquarters, he served as Director General South Asia and Director General Far East. Ambassador Islam taught political science at the University of Dhaka as a lecturer before joining the foreign services. Ambassador Islam captained the Dhaka University tennis team from 1968 to 1969. He was awarded a blue in tennis by the Salimullah Muslim Hall of Dhaka University in 1969. Ambassador Siraj sir,
Yeah.
floor is with you now.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum to the panelists, the distinguished panelists and others who are watching this program or participating in it as participants. So let me start a little bit formally. Your Excellency, Ambassador Aizaz Ahmed Chowdhury, Director General, Institute of Studies, Islamabad. There's, I think, the chairman of the institute also here, Ambassador Khalid Mahmood. My regards to you. And distinguished members of the panel and distinguished participants. Assalamu alaikum. A very good afternoon to all of you there in Pakistan and in Bangladesh. But here, I think myself and Ambassador Babar, we are from Washington, from us here in America. A very good morning to all of you. It's about 8:30 in the morning here in Washington. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon good morning from here. Thanks to the Institute of Studies Islamabad for the invitation. Our webinar is being held when the pandemic is raging the world and South Asia. In South Asia, if we all remember, when this pandemic was on the cusp of hitting us in March and April, there were very doomsday scenario given to us by the Western media and also perhaps from some of the international organizations, perhaps who also did give us a doomsday scenario that hundreds and thousands of our citizens would face this pandemic and would die as a result. But thanks to the wise leadership of the two prime ministers, Imran Khan in Pakistan and our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh, we have been able to manage our pandemic in a way of which we are proud, and all congratulations to the way the two leaders have led it. The death figures I've saw today is in the margin of a little bit over 6,000 in Pakistan, less than 5,000 in Bangladesh, which is much better compared to the scenario that was given to us a few months ago. With these words, let me come to the topic proper, Bangladesh-Pakistan relations in the context of peace and stability in South Asia. The topic is, as Ambassador Aizaz Ahmed has explained in his inaugural comments, and also the Dr. Malik also said, is very, very important for all of the countries in South Asia. So I will first of all touch on the aspect that is the peace and stability, aspect of peace and stability in South Asia. We in Bangladesh, from the very start, our inception, we came to existence in 1971 through a bloody war of liberation, and that led to the death of a huge number of people in Bangladesh. But subsequent to that, under the leadership of our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, we did strive very hard for the one aspect of the seminar, of the webinar today, which is peace and stability in South Asia. And in recognition of this need for peace and stability in the region, our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, did two things in 1974. He invited the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, to Dhaka. And then thereafter, sometime end of the year, maybe in the middle of the year, he did visit Lahore in extending what was his perception of a Bangladesh, his vision of Bangladesh, which was to create Bangladesh as a Switzerland of the East, truly neutral country, which will be friend. His perception was, in terms of our relations with other countries of the world in the region, was friendship was all and enmity was none. He tried it till the time he died in 1975 in the context of a brutal assassination in which he and his family, they died in 1975 on the 15th of August. But till he died, he tried his best for one of the concepts of this webinar today, for peace and stability in South Asia. He gave his life for that. Subsequent to him, when Ziaur Rahman came, he gave the multilateral vision to peace and stability in South Asia. He was the one who dreamt about SARC. And then thereafter, it was after his death that it came into being in Dhaka in 1985. But his perception was all the countries of South Asia will be like ASEAN, like the other regional organizations of the world, will be modeled after them, but he hoped that it will be better than them. Because we in South Asia, we constituted 1/4 of humanity. And our potential, as Ambassador Aizaz Ahmed started at the beginning and said, we have tremendous potential intellectually. So Ziaur Rahman's vision was get all the countries together in a regional organization, pattern it after ASEAN, pattern after the European Union, but together prove we are better than that. But that did not happen. Why it did not happen, you know, I know. A little bit of that perception was given by Ambassador Aizaz Ahmed in the beginning. Thereafter, when Sheikh Hasina became the present Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina became the Prime Minister in her term 1996 to 2001, there also, she tried to carry the same vision with which her father led between 1971 and 1975 in the context of peace and development in South Asia. She did two things. When Pakistan and India were engaged, there was tension over the nuclear blasts in the region. Pakistan and India tried their respective nuclear blasts. At that time, there was a lot of tension in the region, and that tension has spilled westward, and people were looking at South Asia, thinking that it was on the cusp of a tremendous catastrophe. But at that time, she did the visit to capitals. She did go to Delhi, and she did visit Islamabad in search of peace and stability. And at that time, I was the Director General for South Asia in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I was part of the delegation to both New Delhi and in Islamabad. And she was sincere, she was genuine, and she tried her best. And at that time, there was hope that her visit would perhaps bring the two neighbors, Pakistan and India, together and look for some sort of peace and stability at a time when tension was riding very high. Thereafter, at the end, I forget the month, maybe in August or July, or maybe a little bit later, same year, 1998, she tried to bring all the regions together, this time on the aspect of economic development of the region. And she did try to hold with all the countries, but ultimately two countries and Bangladesh hosted, Pakistan and India came to Bangladesh on what was then termed as the Business Summit, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India Business Summit. That was our vision of uniting South Asia in terms of coming out of the political problems that existed between India and Pakistan. Our vision, bring them out, get them together on issues of economics, trade, investment, and other issues other than politics. And that was also very successful. But unfortunately, at that time, the regime in India changed. It was Gujral who came to Dhaka. Then he lost power, and Vajpayee became the Prime Minister. And Pakistan, it was Nawaz Sharif who went to Dhaka. He was very committed to this idea of the business summit of a Prime Minister. But then thereafter, the regime itself in Bangladesh changed in 2001. From 2001 to, there's a big gap. 2001 to 2009, when the Awami League came back to power again, there's a big gap. I would not like to go into that, but a lot of things happened in our bilateral relations with Pakistan, with India. That's part of a chapter that can be discussed somewhere else. But from 2009 to till, maybe not the present, maybe a few months from present into the past, things were more or less stagnant as far as Bangladesh relations with Pakistan is concerned. So we were at that time too deeply involved with India for a number of reasons. And that partly it was, I don't want to go into fault finding, but Bangladesh-Pakistan relations between 2009 and 2020, till Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, phoned our Prime Minister a few months ago, it was more or less in quarantine. There's nothing that really happened between Pakistan and Bangladesh in the meantime. But at that time, our relations with India were extremely good. And you have to understand one thing, and that is where I have a problem with the way this concept paper has been written. The concept has been written as if we are trying to discuss bilateral relations with India and Pakistan with India as the focus. And there's a lot of things written in the concept paper itself, with which in another context we may discuss, but in this context of the webinar, where we are trying to find peace and stability in South Asia, I think that is not at all welcome to discuss India specific, and that also in a very, very negative tone. Because where this paper, the concept paper, fails to really focus is the relation between Bangladesh and India is quite different from the relations that we have with Pakistan. The relationship with India has got a history, has got a culture, and a lot of other things, which despite at the present moment, somebody outside Bangladesh or outside this region may see that between Pakistan and India, and between Bangladesh and India, there may be some issues that are creating some sort of a tension. But the tensions are between two countries which are in deep relationship on a different context. Geography, history binds us together where we cannot bring a third party like Pakistan into the equation and look at India from a negative point of view. That you have to allow, you have to understand, this panelists to understand, has to be left to our leadership and our people in Bangladesh, how we will deal with India. But on that perspective also, there are some openings where the present, this might, I do not represent the government of Bangladesh. I'm talking here as absolutely as a private individual. I think the government of Bangladesh is now trying to come to a position where the father of the nation, the way he visualized Bangladesh, to be a country which will be independent of all the others in a neutral position, and then from a neutral position, try to develop its relation with the other countries from the way he perceived Bangladesh to be, a country which would be the Switzerland of the East. From that point of view, we have to discuss our relationship with Pakistan. And when we discuss our relationship with Pakistan, we must understand that from 2009 till again the point I made a little while ago, Prime Minister Imran Khan's call to Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Till then, for this last almost a decade, nothing really happened. Your ambassador to Dhaka was not given an agreement for long 2 years. So this is one aspect which we cannot discuss in the webinar today, but there are a lot of things there that needs to be done. Before we discuss, peace and stability together, working Pakistan and Bangladesh working together for peace and stability, first thing we must understand, we have to take the Indian equation out of it. That is what landed us into trouble from 2001 to 2009. That is one point I strongly want to make.
Thank you, Ambassador. Can you please wind up? Thank you very much. Ambassador Islam has...
I think he has not completed. Saif, let the ambassador complete his.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, then give another couple of minutes. The other part of it that I really, the note I made here, now I've given up my note, I'm talking almost extempore. It is very important for Pakistan and Bangladesh to have a good relationship. I was not happy from my perspective, a personal point of view, not happy what was happening for the last 9 or 10 years. So this has come to a start with Prime Minister Imran Khan's call to our Prime Minister. And this has been welcomed across the political divide in Pakistan, but in a very positive way. This has to be built up. So we need to build our relationship with Pakistan that has not been built the way it should be built, the way it should be. And that is where people in Pakistan who are in charge or who may be watching this program, maybe thinking this program can have some input, is where Pakistan needs to do something. I've said what our prime ministers did, the father of the nation, then President Ziaur Rahman and our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, for peace and stability. Our credibility and credentials are on table for you to judge. These are, I think, very genuine and very positive. Now, Pakistan and Bangladesh going together and working for peace and stability in South Asia. In 1998, Sheikh Hasina went to Pakistan. We tried. But from Pakistan's point of view, there are two very important things that you have not done yet. And unless you do that, I can rest assured, from my personal point of view, is that our relationship will not go anywhere. Our relationship to go somewhere, we need to have what has not happened in the last 50 years. Is an apology from Pakistan for the events that happened in 1971. It's a common man's demand. It's got nothing to do with the politicians. It's a common man's demand. Anybody you talk to in Bangladesh will tell you, yes, we have a lot of things in common in Pakistan. The history. I was teaching political science in Dhaka University. I'm a student of history and political science, so I know this part of it. There's a lot of things on which we can build and go forward for peace and stability in South Asia. But before we do that, we have to make a start in a bilateral relationship. There we have this stumbling block. This is something you need to clear in Pakistan. And with that, of course, the other almost twin issue that comes with the apology is the part of the assets and liabilities of 1970.
Ambassador Islam, may I request to wind up, please?
Yeah, now I'm finished. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Islam, for expressing your thoughts and especially highlighting the role played by Bangladeshi leadership towards peace and stability in South Asia. Our next speaker is a renowned academician, Professor Dr. Munis Ahmed. Dr. Ahmed was a meritorious professor, Department of International Relations, University of Karachi. He is a former dean Faculty of Social Sciences, and Director, Program on Peace Studies and Conflict Resolution. He has also been on fellowship at Dhaka University and authored book titled Pakistan and Bangladesh From Conflict to Cooperation. Professor Ahmed will make his presentation on security and cooperation in South Asia, Pakistani perspective. Dr. Munez, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, please. We can hear you.
Great. I must first of all, I must appreciate the initiative taken by the Institute of Strategic Studies Islamabad for holding this very important event on peace and cooperation in South Asia. And of course, there are two segments, one dealing with the Bangladeshi and Pakistani perspective, and the another segment is exclusively on Bangladesh-Pakistan relations. Having said that, I have around 10 minutes. So what I will do is that to focus on what is Pakistan's perspective on peace and cooperation in South Asia. I think we all agree to the fact that South Asia today, with a world population of 20%, South Asia is also a region which is exposed to numerous contentious issues. So in this regard, how Pakistan views peace and cooperation in South Asia. The first thing is primarily that Pakistan utterly believes, genuinely believes, honestly believes that SARC, which is in limbo since last around you can say 4 years, 2016, South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation needs to be revitalized. SARC, and the very idea of South Asian regional cooperation, which was given by the then or the former president of Bangladesh, Ziaur Rahman. And the first summit of SARC was held in Dhaka in December 1985. So there cannot be any headway, there cannot be any breakthrough as far as peace and cooperation in South Asia is concerned unless SARC is revitalized. And I think some activity has been going on from the Bangladeshi side that in 2016, in the fall of 2016, when India along with Afghanistan, Bhutan and Bangladesh decided not to participate in the SARC summit, which was scheduled to be held in Islamabad. So I think there is some rethinking in Dhaka, and Bangladesh is now repositioning its previous stance as far as SARC participation in the SARC summit is concerned. So South Asia is certainly at the crossroads. Peace and cooperation in South Asia is directly affiliated, is directly linked as far as human security is concerned. And we know very well that how the pandemic, how the coronavirus impacted as far as South Asia is concerned. But unfortunately, the members of SARC were unable to deal with major security issues. It is not only the pandemic thing which impacted as far as South Asia is concerned, but certainly South Asia is grappling with a number of issues which directly concerns peace and security, energy security, water security, food security, environmental security. So these are the issues which should have been taken seriously by SARC. The second thing is primarily that when we talk about peace and cooperation in South Asia, cooperation cannot be, I don't think that it is something which is unilateral in nature. It has to be reciprocal. It has to be bilateral. And we know very well that since the last couple of years, the situation on the ground is quite, I think, there's a great sort of predicament which South Asia is facing, particularly when we talk about India and Pakistan. Now, this thing has basically negatively impacted as far as peace and cooperation in South Asia is concerned, when the two major countries of South Asia are not in talking terms. The track one is not to be seen, and this is very unfortunate because there was a time when, say, around 15 years ago, around 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, the composite dialogue, which was primarily major activity between India and Pakistan to normalize their relations. So I think that peace and cooperation in South Asia cannot take off, there cannot be any breakthrough, there cannot be any headway unless there is the resumption of dialogue or normalization of relations between India and Pakistan. And Pakistan has offered India many times to resume composite dialogue, to resume dialogue, to resume, bilateral ties between the two countries, which have suffered enormously in the last couple of years. But the response from the Indian side is not positive. So this is something which is hurting as far as efforts for peace and cooperation in South Asia is concerned. The third thing is about the fact that how the confidence building measures between India and Pakistan on the one hand and confidence building measures as far as SAARC is concerned. So these two must be revitalized. And confidence building measures at the military level and the non-military level, and we know very well that since 1990s, there was enormous effort which was made by the two countries for the confidence building measures. But unfortunately, what has happened is that in the last 2 years, particularly the Modi regime, and how the Modi regime has damaged the process of not only composite dialogue, but also as far as confidence building measures is concerned. So this thing needs to be taken into account, that reciprocal efforts, bilateral efforts from the two sides will certainly make a difference, because as I said earlier, that unless India and Pakistan, the two major countries of South Asia with a population of around 75 to 80%, and the geography also, the area also, unless these two countries are able to mend fences, it will be very difficult. And of course, I don't want to talk about other issues like how the Modi regime has destabilized the process of peace and cooperation in South Asia by revoking Article 370 and 35A as far as the special status of its occupied Jammu and Kashmir concerned, how the Citizenship Amendment Act, CAA, the Indian side, that has also deepened insecurity as far as the minorities, India is concerned, religious minorities are concerned. The other thing which I would like to mention here, given the paucity of time here, is that there is a need to bridge as far as trust deficit is concerned. And trust deficit is a major factor as far as stagnation is concerned. Stagnation in terms of peace and cooperation is, and there is absolutely no disagreement. Everyone agrees that there should be peace in South Asia, that there should be meaningful, purposeful cooperation as far as the region is concerned, because South Asia contributes how much as far as the world economy is concerned. And then when we talk about trust deficit is something which has primarily jeopardized efforts for peace and cooperation in South Asia, and trust deficit needs to be bridged. And it cannot be done only by Pakistan. It has to be reciprocated as far as India is concerned. And finally, I think when we talk about South Asia and when we talk about its role as far as global economy is concerned, its role as far as global order is concerned, we know very well where do we stand. I give you the example that in the last World Olympics, unfortunately, no South Asian country was able to secure a gold medal. So that is something which is very unfortunate, that in World Olympics, we have absolutely no major contribution in global economy. We are not doing well. And that has to do with the fact that SARC is in limbo. SARC needs to be revitalized. And for that purpose, I think that the SARC summit, which was scheduled in Islamabad, which was postponed because of the Indian stance, needs to be called, needs to be, there's an urgent need to call a SARC summit. And the summit needs to be very purposeful, because SARC has done a lot of work as far as the suppression of terrorism, the Convention of 1987 concerned, the Charter of Democracy 2009, which was agreed by SARC. So SARC has done a lot of paperwork. SARC has done a lot of, groundwork. The only thing is that it needs to be implemented. And for that matter, in my view, India needs to play a major role, because certainly India is a country which has neighbors, which has borders with all the SARC member countries except Afghanistan, except Maldives, and of course it's in the proximity of Sri Lanka. So that is what is India's responsibility. And I don't think that any member of SARC is disagreement. And finally, I would mention here that for peace and cooperation in South Asia, it is imperative, it is essential, and it is very, I think important to include China as a full member of SARC. China has an observer status. China has borders with almost all the SARC countries. It has borders with Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, India, Bhutan. Bangladesh is in proximity of China. China has huge investments in Sri Lanka. So if China is included as a full member of SARC, then it will help as far as the process of stability in the region is concerned, as far as peace is concerned. But we know very well that who is opposing the Chinese admission as a full member of SARC. So that is something which is required. And I think Nepal and Pakistan, these two countries support the Chinese case. And China needs to basically, in order to become full member of SARC, it needs to apply. Like Pakistan and India are now full members of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So why can't China be a full member of SARC? The argument is basically that China doesn't share culturally things with South Asia, but certainly China has enormous economic, geopolitical and strategic interests in almost all the countries of South Asia. So that is what we need to bear in mind, that for the future of peace and stability in South Asia, the role of China cannot be undermined. And for that purpose, I think India also needs to understand the fact that since China is India's largest trading partner, regardless of the recent confrontation or the conflict, low intensity conflict between India and China, but it is in the interest of India, in as much in the interest of other countries of SARC, to have China as a full member of SARC, which will definitely make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Munez, for your candid views. You very rightly mentioned, to break the trust deficit, there is no denial to reciprocal and bilateral dialogues. Our next speaker is Mr. Mohammad Mohsin Rashid. Mr. Rashid is a senior lawyer, Supreme Court of Bangladesh, ex-Secretary General SARC Law, and former Executive President Gono Forum, a political party with representation in Parliament. He will share his thoughts on improving bilateral relations, possible areas of cooperation. Sir, floor is with you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear.
Okay, great. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm not an ambassador. I'm not an academician. I am essentially a lawyer and a politician. Bangladesh is the third largest country in South Asia. It has the second biggest economy, I should say, with reserves more than any other country except India. Now, let's get back and see how this relationship had developed. Pakistan recognizes Bangladesh before the OIC summit, and after recognition, the two very important statements. One was made by Indira Gandhi, and I quote, she said, "We have always felt the normalization of relations between Bangladesh and Pakistan and relations, and this will be an important step towards peace and cooperation in the subcontinent." Very important statement. Then Bangabandhu had said, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman said, "I would like to state that in opening a new chapter in our relations on the basis of sovereignty, we have paved the way for contributing together to the promotion of peace in our subcontinent and the world." Now, having said this, this was the basis of the relationship. In 1974, February, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman visits Lahore. The reception that he got in Lahore was amazing. Chaudhry Fazil Ilahi, I think he was the president, and Bhutto, they went to the airport to receive him, both of them, and they embraced each other. There was this gun salute and other things that were given to him. 1974, again, in June, the then president of Pakistan, or the Prime Minister, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, visits Bangladesh. And he got a huge reception in Bangladesh. It is just after the liberation, few years, 2-3 years after the liberation. He even went and laid a wreath at the Jatiyo Smriti song that we have, which is a monument for the unknown martyrs. He laid a wreath there. Now, this is how the relationship started, even after what happened in the then erstwhile East Pakistan. Then you see, you had this Simla agreement and the tripartite agreement. I have spoken to Dr. Kamal Hussain, who is the leader of my party, Gona Forum. I asked him if an apology was tendered. And he said, yes, Aziz Ahmad did tender an apology on behalf of Pakistan. And it is only then that we went in and into that meeting and signed the tripartite agreement. So, these things have been happening. Now the point is, this is a region where you have poverty. This is the region which should work together. You have enormous poverty in India. You have enormous poverty in Nepal. You have enormous poverty in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, all these countries. We have to work together. Bangladesh has recently, the ICE has thought after Imran Khan made a telephone call to our Prime Minister, and that has gone very well with the population here in Bangladesh. People have taken it very, very well. And the ICE has thought, the High Commissioner for Pakistan, Mr. Siddiqui, has had meetings with the Foreign Minister, with many other politicians and others intellectuals here in Bangladesh. And the government of Pakistan has now assured Bangladesh that we want your prosperity. There is no conflict between us in as much as your prosperity is concerned. These assurances have been given, and I think the Prime Minister of Pakistan also gave, and my Prime Minister took it very, very well. And she was extremely happy to have received this call from Imran Khan. Extremely happy, I can tell you this much. Now, you see, we have to, in this region, there is now a deliberate attempt by a particular country to sabotage bilateral relationships between countries. And this has now gone to an extent where I, as a politician and as a citizen of Bangladesh, am very, very afraid that there are things that they might be planning. I have heard they're planning things to use people. They've asked a particular community to grow beards, and they're planning some kind of an activity here which could lead to a serious problem and may ultimately lead to intervention. And interventions these days are happening. It's now part of international law where interventions do happen. It has happened in many countries, and they're happening. South Asian countries are confronted not only with the challenging task of safeguarding our territorial integrity and also creating stable state structures. The problem is that a big nation with its military power tries to disrupt us from creating these institutions. And this country does not want Pakistan and Bangladesh to have a strong bilateral relationship. But I'm sure over time, this is definitely going to happen. There are challenges in this region from religious fundamentalists. This has to be taken care of. Excuse me. This has to be taken care of. Then the fate. We all know that the fate of secularism in countries where it is constitutionally ordained has over the years grown uncertain. You've got fascist regimes in this region. Hitlerism is growing in this region. And this one country does not believe in secularism anymore. That country is trying to create problems in Bangladesh. They want the Islamic fundamentalists to clash. They will not clash. They will create their own mullahs, and create confusion. Maybe by killing some top people, they would say that mullahs have killed these people. And I've also heard they're planning similar problems in Pakistan also, trying to bring the Barelvis and the other Deobandis into some kind of a conflict. And this is being done by that particular country. So we have to be very careful. We have to be extremely careful. I would say that SAARC had been is a great regional organization. I have been the Secretary General of SAARC Law, which is an apex body. Currently, why I say I'm ex-Secretary General, because all the apex bodies have been suspended. Since the councils have not met, they cannot, we get authorized for about a year, and then the council again gives authorization. For 5 years, they have not met. The council has not met. So that is in a limbo, as Mr. Muniz said, that has to be revived. And what hurts me most is that there's a great institution which deals with children in SAARC, SIVAC. SIVAC is in a limbo. They've got so many programs for children. That is in a serious problem. So I have a few suggestions for development of this bilateral relationship. I think Pakistan and Bangladesh should work in the context of peace and stability in South Asia, and Bangladesh and Pakistan relationship should be an example which can filter out to other South Asian nations. I would suggest that a beginning has to be made so that bilaterally we can have either a PTA or an FTA, whichever suits these two countries. There should be easy visa procedures, people-to-people contact. Now, people-to-people contact in the context of Bangladesh and Pakistan is a bit difficult because of the cost that it involves. So for that, I would say that maybe the air travel can be subsidized a bit. If possible, we could introduce dedicated shipping and passenger service so that trade could improve, the volumes could go up, and there could be people who cannot pay for air travel could come and go between these two countries through ships. I think there was a time when we had this. Then there must be discussions and agreements or MOUs on security arrangements, where the security establishment of both the countries should cooperate so that they can keep those who are trying to disrupt the security of our nations at bay. And both Pakistan and Bangladesh are pretty powerful countries in South Asia. If possible, if SAARC summit cannot be held, Mr. Muniz has said that it is imperative that it should be held. Yes, of course, it should be imperative. And in one of my last webinars on this with this institute, I had said that there is no reason why it should not be held. If any country does not want to come, they may not come, because the charter says that you cannot take a decision if there is someone who is objecting to it. The decisions have to be unanimous, but for calling a meeting, you don't need unanimity. If anyone wants to come, that country can come or not come. So my suggestion here is, if possible, either Bangladesh or the Pakistanis can take an initiative to hold an unofficial summit by inviting all these South Asian nations for a little unofficial discussion. And South Asian leaders, I think, should meet regularly, even if it is outside the SAARC arrangement. Bilateral visits to South Asian nations should be given primacy, and this primacy should be bilaterally. Bangladesh leaders should visit Pakistan, Pakistani leaders should visit Bangladesh. There can be exchange programs between students. There can be a lot of scholarships which can be provided by both Pakistan and Bangladesh to their students. So these are things that we could do bilaterally, which can improve our relationship. And as it goes on, maybe we can take this later on in the next 4 or 5 years with another government or whatever it is to another level where it can be a strategic partnership between our countries, our two countries. And I think with China cooperating and the new axis which is coming up, like the Iran, Russia, China, Pakistan, and who else? Turkey. Now this axis can be extended and some kind of a formation can be there. A platform can be created where all these countries, these South Asian countries, and this axis can be strengthened so that it can bring economic benefit, it can bring peace to the region, and there could be security arrangements where perhaps we could keep at bay this big power which has a drum. They beat the drum. A hollow drum is beaten like nobody else's. Lies I spread on their media. Lies, out and out lies, which has nothing to do with truth and facts. So I think we must bilaterally have high-level visits between Pakistan and Bangladesh, and I just laid out a few suggestions which could be looked into. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sir, you are very kind in sharing your incisive and very thought-provoking ideas. And you very rightly mentioned some practical measures towards the solidification of relation and goodwill among the two nations. With this, now I would like to invite Ambassador Alamgir Babar to dilate upon improving bilateral relation, possible areas of cooperation. Ambassador Babar has been ambassador and high commissioner in various countries, including Bangladesh, Brazil, and Russian Federation. Served as special secretary in Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He held various positions in Pakistani diplomatic missions abroad, namely twice in Pakistan mission to UN in New York, New Delhi, and Baghdad. Third, Babar Alamgir. Sir, floor is with you. Ambassador Alamgir Babar. Please unmute. Ambassador Alamgir Babar, please unmute. Sir, can you hear me, Ambassador Alamgir Babar? Kindly accept invitation to unmute. Our staff is doing. Sir,
I think
sir,
now I'm
you can-
okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, first of all, my salams to everybody. I would like to thank the Institute for taking this important initiative. Being late in the list of speakers, I run the danger of being repetitive, but I promise I will try to avoid that. Where it's unavoidable, I'll be very brief. First, a few comments on what has already been said. President Musharraf, when he visited Bangladesh, I think this was 2001 or 2002, I'm not exactly sure. At the request of the Bangladesh government, he gave a public statement regretting the events of 1971. He visited the National Monument for the Fallen and signed the condolence book. Now, we can either continue discussing on how to word an apology, or we can accept this and move on. Other steps have also been taken on the question of repatriation. The 1974 agreement had a specific number, and that has been implemented. In fact, subsequently, there was further repatriation. So I think that chapter is closed. When there's discussion about assets, you also then have to discuss liabilities. And how do you work that out? There are going to be all sorts of formulas, and it will probably not get us to any understanding. So having made these remarks, let me say I agree with Ambassador Sirajul Islam that there are challenges in the bilateral relationship. He said rightly that we should try and keep India out of our bilateral relationship, the Pakistan-Bangladesh bilateral relationship. But then it has to work both ways. The recent example being that Bangladesh joined India and did not come for the SAARC summit. So if we are expected not to bring in India as an element into the bilateral relationship, it has to work both ways. I also agree with the preceding speakers that meaningful regional cooperation in South Asia remains elusive. SARC had an initial promise, but today it is at a standstill. So then we have to ask ourselves the question, how do we move forward? There is only one other alternative, and that is bilateral, mutual, beneficial cooperation. I have served as High Commissioner in Bangladesh, as mentioned by Dr. Malik. I was there for 4 years. Based on that experience, I am very hopeful and encouraged in terms of our bilateral relationship. If we look around, today's youth, they're not constrained by the past. They are more receptive to new ideas and experiences. The social media revolution is eroding traditional physical boundaries and mindsets. I have been, along with Mr. Rashid, tasked with identifying areas or possible areas of bilateral cooperation between Pakistan and Bangladesh. Some of these steps have already been mentioned by Mr. Rashid. I just briefly mention them again, but I would broadly categorize them under 3 headings. First is the political cooperation between the two countries. We have a mechanism between the two countries of bilateral political consultations at the Foreign Secretary level. To my understanding, the last meeting took place in 2010. So at the political level, it is important that we revitalize this process. And as mentioned by the distinguished speakers before me, I agree, the primary goal, this mechanism should be given the goal to pave the way for visits by our respective heads of government every 2 to 3 years, with Bangladesh and Pakistan alternating as hosts, in order to give the necessary political impetus to bilateral cooperation. I agree with with the preceding speakers that we need a positive bilateral political context. So the meeting between our heads of government is critical to that, and at regular intervals. We can also institute regular bilateral consultations in international fora such as the UN, the Commonwealth, OIC, SARC, and the D8. Other areas where we can have cooperative mechanisms could be counterterrorism, anti-narcotics and human trafficking, and disaster management. In disaster management, we already have some bilateral experience. During my tenure, there was heavy flooding in Bangladesh. A self-contained military medical unit was flown into Bangladesh from Pakistan. And they were there for almost a month or 2 months. Similarly, during the 2005 earthquake in Pakistan, there was such an outpour of support. I mean, the High Commission was inundated with medicines, with clothing, with tents, with foodstuff. So that goodwill already exists. We just have to build on it and get some of the politics out of the way. Now, the second broad area of for cooperations is economic, commerce, and trade. And there, as Mr. Rashid pointed out, the biggest challenge is direct air and sea links. There are no PIA flights, as I understand currently, because of their own internal restructuring. Biman flies to Karachi, but with Middle East as the primary destination. There is no direct shipping between Bangladesh and Pakistan. It is all through third countries. So that makes trade and commerce between the two countries costly. I must admit to my failure that during my tenure in Bangladesh, I tried very hard with both governments and private sectors on both sides to see if we could start a shipping service. But it did not materialize. It's a chicken-egg story. When you talk to the business sectors of both countries, they say there is no direct shipping and therefore it's costly to trade. When you talk to the shipping agencies, they say there is not sufficient trade volumes. So it's not commercially or financially viable. So to my mind, I think what we need to do is encourage our two governments to act together jointly and bear the initial financial burden in order to break this logjam. On the economic side, in addition, like we have the foreign secretary level mechanism, we need to have a government to government mechanism with the objective of strengthening economic cooperation and expanding and diversifying bilateral trade and commerce. We also, it would be helpful if we, to create private sector business associations and to take steps to promote joint investments. Now, the third area, as some of the distinguished panelists have already touched upon, is people-to-people context. This is equally important. These could encompass education, tourism, sports, and culture. You would be surprised how much of our youth are already connected through the social media. A case in point is the several musical concerts that the High Commission held in Dhaka. I mean, I never heard or did not know these young musicians from Pakistan, neither heard their music. But to my utter surprise, the young Bangladeshi university and college students that we had invited to these events knew these artists and sang the lyrics of their songs. So it was that shows how much connectivity there already is. At the outset of my remarks, I had said I am hopeful and encouraged. I say this on the basis of my very and many positive experiences in Bangladesh as High Commissioner. I traveled extensively throughout Bangladesh, including to some very remote areas where I went by boat. I was met with warmth and friendship and a degree of enthusiasm.
Ambassador Babar, may I request to wind up, please?
But I down to my last comment. In conclusion, I would like to say the measures that I have highlighted or listed are not exhaustive. These and other areas of bilateral cooperation can be applied in varying degrees in our relations with the other countries of South Asia. And with that, I thank you. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Babar, for very prudent and incisive remarks, very insightful. With this, now I once again request Ambassador Azaz Ahmed Chaudhry to wrap up the proceeding of the event. Sir, please.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I think this was useful interventions made by all speakers. I do agree that the critical mass of goodwill exists between the peoples of the two countries. I also recognize that there are challenges which should be addressed, and to that end we do need instruments or platforms to talk to each other. The fact that for a good 10 years we were not communicating to each other is not going to make the problems go away. We got to meet and talk. As was mentioned, I think by Mr. Rashid, that our High Commissioner now has good access. He's meeting around, he's meeting people. Our earlier High Commissioners also do mention to me at times that they always had access even to the Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. So my sense is that apart from track one, all those ideas that Ambassador Babar said, that bilateral political consultations, head of government level, high level meetings, engaging the youth, and a number of areas, sectoral areas he identified, I think it would also be important for our exchanges to continue at track 2 or perhaps track 1.5 with a combination of the official as well as think tanks like ours. So we do intend, ISSI do intend to reach out to 1 or 2 think tanks in Bangladesh for regular institutionalized exchanges. We should not be worried that either side will raise one issue which is not acceptable to the other side. I think there are ways to raise them in a manner which is non-offensive. which respects each other's sensitivities and focus more on cooperation than on what divides us. So I am very, very pleased at this exchange. It was very encouraging. And I hope that we will soon have some other program, perhaps an institutional dialogue with some think tank with Bangladesh, in Bangladesh. Thank you, Saif.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Chaudhary. While going for a brief question answer session, I have received a question from one of our faculty, research faculty, and this question has been addressed to Ambassador Sirajul Islam. Sir, the question is, query is, one of the corridors, that is BCIM, of China's BRI project involved Bangladesh as well, but progress on the said corridors is halted because of India's open opposition to the project. What is the Bangladeshi stance on this matter?
Thank you very much for the question. I'm not really very competent to answer because this requires details of which I'm not really aware. But what I'm aware is Bangladesh is all for connectivity. Bangladesh has, irrespective of what India thinks or what any other country thinks, Bangladesh is very much on board with all the initiatives by China's Belt and Road Initiative. And Bangladesh is also very deeply involved with India's projects of connectivity through Bangladesh to the Seven Sisters of India, and that also connects, Bhutan and Nepal. So Bangladesh is the connectivity on both sides. That's where I was coming back to my core concept of this, my presentation today. Is Bangladesh is, I think, perhaps the only country that has had, lengthy exchanges with all the countries and beyond China. For example, of late, what is happening in Bangladesh is, it is, getting deeper into cooperation with China and on economic, fronts. It is for, bringing the region together precisely for the objective of the seminar today, peace and stability in the region. So, Bangladesh is very close to China. Bangladesh is very close to India. Bangladesh is, though the relationship had been stalled for a few years since recently with the phone call of Prime Minister Imran Khan, this has opened up. So, and as where, some of the speakers here have mentioned, as Ambassador Babar has also mentioned, there's a tremendous fund of goodwill in Bangladesh for Pakistan as well. But, always it's like politics seems to be the, great, something lurking in the shadow. Whenever we move forward, it comes and grabs all the good things we do. That is where small things, those very small in terms of, but these things need to be done. At the level of the people, the perception, the one side, Ambassador Baba said, tremendous fun. Young people know the singers of Pakistan. Yes, it's true. At the same time, the same young people, when you talk to them on another front, we'll talk about politics, and those political issues have not been resolved. Same problems we have in India. So on the specific question that that I've been asked, is Bangladesh is, as far as I know, again, my answer will not be authoritative because I'm not an insider of the government. But as far as I know from what I have found out from my contacts, is that we are on board with both connectivity, with India, with through the Seven Sisters, through Bangladesh to the Seven Sisters, connectivity that has been initiated by China, BRI. We are told, and we are also part of the BIMSTEC. BIMSTEC is also, one that brings the region minus a part of South Asia with part of Southeast Asia. So we are on board as being, I think, if you allow me, with the best credentials. So to move forward, that is where, as I think Ambassador Babar made very strong point there, and the DG of the institute has also made, there are scopes, tremendous scopes. With Imran Khan is known in every house in Bangladesh because of his cricketing background and held very positively. Why not use him? Why not use him? The issues I've raised, we had a clean slate for 10 years. And you and I know why the clean slate is there. So, they bring, fill in, write something on the slate. And writing something on the slate is not very difficult. But please, You know, when you're talking about bilateral relations, the more you keep India out of it, the better it will be for our bilateral relations. Bringing India will be putting the cart before the horse in terms of Bangladesh, Pakistan bilateral relations. This is my point. But on the question, we are on connectivity with everybody. And to the best of my knowledge, the Bangladesh government is totally 100% committed to connectivity across all corners.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your response. At the end, I request Ambassador Khalid Mahmood for the concluding remarks. Ambassador Khalid Mahmood is a former ambassador of Pakistan to Iran, Iraq, China, Saudi Arabia, and Mongolia. He is also a former permanent representative of Pakistan to the OIC and the Economic Cooperation Organization. Currently, Ambassador Mahmood is the Chairman Board of Governors, Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. He holds a Master's in Political Science and LLB from the University of Punjab, Lahore. Sir, floor is with you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. See, I've been participating in several webinars and seminars and meetings, but I'm particularly happy today attending this webinar because it has provided me an opportunity to revive my contact with some old colleagues and friends like Ambassador Babar, and also to establish contact with new friends from Bangladesh. See, when I was listening to the proceedings of this webinar, I felt as if an estranged family members are sitting together, meeting after quite some time. Naturally, they had some good memories, some bad memories, some members emphasizing one or the other thing. But the overall atmosphere was of, as it should be within a family. So I would also like to recall positive, good memories of my contacts with people from Bangladesh. See, to begin with, my direct contact with officers from Bangladesh was in the Foreign Service when we joined in 1964. So the friendship I developed with my Bangladeshi colleagues, it was unblemished, really. And we ever since have been in contact with each other and entertain very friendly feelings for each other. Incidentally, during the academy, I shared my accommodation during 3 years with two Bangladeshi diplomats who reached the level of foreign secretary. And secondly, I recall particularly, I was additional secretary Asia Pacific and accompanied Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto on her official visit to Bangladesh in 1989, October. So I will not go into detail of the whole program, but as is usual, you know, there was a citizens' reception in that garden, Ramna Green Garden, you know. And I was sharing table with many Bangladeshis, you know, the round tables there. And the program started with a song being sung by Shahnaz Begum. And she was singing a song sung by Madam Noor Jahan. And the song was, ले आई फिर कहाँ पर किस्मत हमें कहाँ से, ये तो वही जगह है बिछड़े थे हम जहाँ से. This is how the proceeding started. And there was pin drop silence. And I could see the feelings of the people around with their eyes really wet. So that really moved me a lot, an experience which I still remember, which was reflective of the close affection the two people have for each other. Now, much has been said about the theme of the webinar today. One thing stands out that there is desire for the countries of this region to forge cooperative ties, but then there are challenges also which one cannot ignore. Mr. Sirajul Islam said we should, our approach should be strict bilateralism, and we should not let relations here with India intrude upon these. Very sound advice, but in South Asia, if the major country, you cannot keep it out, you know. It is like India is an elephant in the room. See, yesterday I attended a seminar and an Indian analyst, Mr. Akar Patel, he said that when Modi came to power in 2014, the manifesto of his party talked of regional cooperation, SAARC. But when he came second time to power in 2019, in the manifesto of his party, no mention of regionalism, no mention of SAARC. So I think that was a step backward from which we are still suffering. The whole South Asia is suffering from. And he also pointed out that ever since the 2019 elections in India, there is a visible deterioration of India's ties with all its neighbors, and which is militating against cooperation for economic, social development of the people of the region. As regards the practical suggestions, many have been made. But I think apart from bilateral efforts, one message is clear that SAARC needs to be revived, needs to be revitalized, because all the superstructure is there. It is only that we are not making use of the potential of SAARC, which was established thanks to the vision of President Ziaur Rahman of Bangladesh. Track 2 interaction, I think, is a very important suggestion. And I recall that when I was president of Association of Former Ambassadors of Pakistan, I hosted a delegation from the former ambassadors of Bangladesh. But unfortunately, this contact could not be sustained. So there is need for revival of this second track involving former ambassadors, think tanks, youth, and so on. Another point which I would like to stress was that, as pointed out by Mr. Mohsin Rashid, that we have to be careful of the spoilers. You cannot sustain your efforts if there's always some party, some elements which are bent upon undermining it. So we have to be careful. And I think if we are conscious of this, and naturally we will adopt the necessary preventive measures also. I would like to conclude by saying that I take this message from this webinar, that there is a lot of goodwill among the various states of South Asia, of its people. And we particularly, as talking of Bangladesh, very little genuine effort needs to be done to revive the old context. Even today, we honor our Bangladeshi forefathers, who played such a pivotal role in the Pakistan movement. When I come from my home to the institute every day, I travel on Sorwardi Road, A.K. Fazlul Haq Road. I mean, we still honor and remember our benefactors. So there's so much common, so much goodwill, I think, let's build upon it and not be deterred by any detractors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for very comprehensively summing up the whole session. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm grateful to worthy panelists for having shared their thoughts and sparing their very precious time for us. And ladies and gentlemen, you can visit our website for video recording, press release, and reports at ISSI's website, www.issi.org.pk. With this, today's event stands closed, and thank you very much for participation.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.